Thank you. I'll start the meeting in the bell of the club. And I'd like to welcome our guests. I'd like to welcome you all, and in particular, we have some special guests. Clive, would you like to perhaps locate and introduce our special guests?
Yes, His Excellency Ellison Greenslade is unable to join us today. He just sent a message fairly recently.
Right.
Those of you who are visiting, who are not members of the club, if you like to unmute yourself, you will appear on my list here, and I will call upon you just to briefly introduce yourself. So everybody who is not a member of the Rotary Club of London, if you can unmute yourself, and then I will invite you to introduce yourself. Yes, Grace is the first one I see. I can't see the screen, but you're on.
Hi, yeah, I'm connecting from my iPhone and I'm busy driving, so that's why you don't have my screen.
Okay.
But I'm from the Rotary Club of Johannesburg in South Africa.
Yes, and that's the third week you've joined us, Grace, so we're pleased that you're with us again today.
You're most welcome, Grace.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. David Obadan from Nigeria. Are you there, David?
Yeah, thank you much. My name's David Obadan, past president Rotary Club Tulare South, Lagos, Nigeria, District 9110.
Good to see you again.
It's a pleasure to be in your midst today.
Thank you. Samantha Greaves, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Samantha Greaves. I'm from London. I was introduced and invited to join here today by Carol, Duchess Carol, and I'm the founder of a sickle cell charity, a community organization, and it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
We're delighted to see you. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome, Samantha.
And Sydney Parker, an old friend who seems seen many times. Sydney, would you just like to do a brief introduction?
Can't because
yes, I can hear you.
No, let's just come back on. Yeah, Sydney Parker, Rotary Club of Northwick Park. Delighted to join you this afternoon. First time for a few weeks.
Yep, good to see you again, Sydney. Thank you. And Candy Liu.
Yeah. Hi everyone, I'm Candy. I'm just moved to London, so I'm PP from Rotary Club of Smart Hong Kong. Just submit the application to Rotary Club of London. So I'm right now the group of GM from Hong Kong Communication doing the robotic business. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Candy. Good to see you. And Inga from Norway, would you like to introduce yourself again, please?
Hello, I'm Inge from Hamar West, 1 hour north of Oslo Airport. Joining you again because you have a very interesting program also today.
Very pleased to see you again, Inga. Joyce Florell, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hello, I'm Joyce Florell.
Yes, hello, Joyce. Oh, you seem to have lost.
Can you hear me?
I can now. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Joyce Florell, Secretary for Rwanda Sisterhood Association, and we thank our ambassador, who is Duchess, who invited us. Unfortunately, the president was supposed to come in as well, but she hasn't been able to. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, it's nice to see you, Joyce. Thank you. Nahid, regular visitor, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon. Sorry, was it me? No.
Yes, you, Nahid, yes.
Yeah. Good afternoon, President David. I bring a greeting from Rotary Club of Harrow, President John, and thank you so much for inviting us. We enjoy every meeting we attend.
Thank you, Nahid. Eve, a regular visitor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Clive, and President David. Lovely to be here again. It's Eve Conway, obviously past president of Rotary in Britain and Ireland, but bring you greetings from the Rotary Club of Redbridge and President Satish Gupta. And just a quick plug for our meeting next week on the 22nd of September at 7:30 in the evening. We have the past president of Rotary International, John Germ, speaking to us, who is currently chairman of the Empolio Now Countdown to History Campaign Committee and chair-elect of the Rotary Foundation. So I extend a warm welcome to everyone on this call to join us, and details are in the district notices and will be sent out hopefully through the Rotary Club of London newsletter as well, if possible. That'd be lovely. Thank you very much, and great to be here again for an amazing meeting. I know it's going to be fantastic.
Thank you, Eve. Yamina.
Good afternoon. My name is YAMINA Karitanyi. I'm the Rwandan High Commissioner, and I look forward to exchanging with all of you.
We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for joining us. That concludes the list of people who've identified themselves as visitors. President David, so if we can continue.
Thank you very much indeed, Sergeant at Arms Clive. If I can then move on to the formal parts of our meeting and ask for council reports. I'm not sure, is Olivia on the line, on the call?
Olivia was on the call, yes.
Yeah, hello. Yeah. Sorry, I was wondering.
Caught you by surprise, Olivia. Yeah. Olivia's been looking at the possibility of us meeting at the Chesterfield, and I wondered if she had an update for us.
Unfortunately, no, because they are still at the meeting, you see. But then I have been told that you know, they were following the government guidelines anyway. So
you can only have 6 now.
Yeah, yeah, that's what the government directive is as of today.
From today, correct.
Yeah.
And I think that as we can only have 6, we aren't obliged to meet at the Chesterfield, as well as not actually probably recommending it in any case. Would that be correct?
Yes, you can go to the restaurant, you know, whatever. I mean, after all these hospitality restaurants are still open anyway. They are allowed 6 in a group, you see. But other than that, you know, the Chesterfield is following the government guideline. And I suppose that we, as the Rotary Club of London, will be following the government directive as well.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks.
We will of course be doing that. I suppose the background to my question is that we have a contract with the Chesterfield to meet there every week, and so far that's been suspended, and I'm assuming that they are happy to continue suspending that contract because of the legal position. In that case, can I move on to reports of visits to other clubs? Robert.
Redbridge Club.
I've had no
Yeah.
I thought you might have visited the Redbridge Club. Yes. Are there any other reports? Has anybody been?
We were at Stratford as well.
Stratford as well.
Yeah, with a festival for young people, which was interesting.
Yes.
All on tape.
Tom.
You need to unmute yourself, Tom.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been visiting the Rotary Club of Cannes, who are meeting as normal, obviously following guidelines and keeping distance. And the meetings have been really very enjoyable, and it's great to actually be at a meeting, as I know everybody who are members of the Rotary Club are yearning to, Rotary Club of London are yearning to do as well. So as and when it happens, we're all rejoice. So anyway, that's the end of my little.
Thank you, Tom. I've not been to any meetings in the last week. I don't know whether Julian, who often does. Julian, have you been to any Zoom meetings?
Not this week, Mr. President. No, but I'm hoping to.
Thank you.
Last week, rather. Hoping to this week, though.
Okay, thanks. So that's meetings with any clubs. I'd also like to ask for an observation from our immediate past president, who's been touring the continent. And I wondered whether, Tim, you have any observations to make on the behaviours in Italy and Greece compared to UK.
Well, I haven't been to any Rotary meetings. Well, I haven't been to any Rotary meetings while I've been away, but I have been to Italy, Turkey, and Greece. And I can tell you, of the 3 of them, the one country that best observes all the rules and is very strict is Italy. So I would expect that to be the last one to lose its air bridge status. The others are trying, but in Italy, you cannot even walk into a shop without, sorry, this is going back a couple of months when it wasn't prevalent here. If you walked into a shop without a mask, a large shop, a small shop, you were jumped on instantly. If you walked through a restaurant from the entrance to go to your seat, you had to wear a mask. Very, very strict. So that's my observation. Italy is best at the COVID rules.
It appears to be reflected in their statistics as well, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And I'd like to take the same opportunity to ask if we have any other overseas visitors who have observations on the response to COVID-19 and how they see it as affecting the figures. Are we doing the right thing? Tim? Oh, you're back, aren't you? Inga?
No, David. David, I'm in Belgium at the moment. And Belgium has been...
Oh, you are still in Belgium?
They do the same as Italy. The moment you move, you wear a mask. And you wear the mask in the street here in Brussels at the moment. And so it's very strict indeed. However, they're suffering like we are with an increase in cases, but not in deaths. So it's an interesting debate at the moment, how far they go, what they do next, etc.
Thank you. Thank you. Tom. Yeah.
Yeah, Dave, just to say that France is much the same. It's obligatory to wear masks in the street, even when you're going across to the beach to have a swim, you wear a mask, but not swimming.
Okay, and of course France has got some of the worst figures in Europe at the moment. Yeah. Okay, so that's the reports, and the next thing I think is to move on to the main business of the meeting. And here I would like to ask you if you have a glass or vessel in your hand to offer a toast to the Queen. I will just amend my camera briefly. This is our own club painting. Can we toast the Queen?
The Queen.
The Queen. Thank you. Now, a much less attractive figure appears in view before you. I now come to the main business of the meeting, and that's it, to introduce our speaker, except that I'm not giving you the introduction. I'm asking Vasi H. Daniel if she will do that for us. Vasi, are you
yes,
able to unmute? And
thank you. Thank you, President David. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, fellow Rotarians, it gives me great pleasure and honor to introduce Her Excellency Ms. YAMINA Karitanyi. Her Excellency Ms. YAMINA Karitanyi is the High Commissioner for the Republic for Rwanda for the United Kingdom and is non-residential ambassador to Ireland since September 2015. Prior to her posting in London, from April 2014, Ms. YAMINA Karitanyi was at the helm of the tourism and conservation portfolios at the Rwanda Development Board, RDB, the government's agency mandated with fast-tracking economic development in the country. Ambassador Karitanyi was appointed High Commissioner stationed in Nairobi in May 2012, having previously served as Minister Counselor at the mission since 2010. During her tour as High Commissioner to Kenya, trade and diplomatic relations between Rwanda and Kenya were enhanced significantly. Having held various senior positions at Good Works International, a strategic consulting and advisory firm that serves multinational corporations and governments in the USA and East Africa, prior to which Her Excellency was marketing analyst at Carrier Corporation. Her Excellency has a proven record in international business, operations management, business negotiations, and diplomacy. Ambassador Karitanyi holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Studies from Buffalo State College, USA, and an MBA from Rochester Institute of Technology. Her Excellency is fluent in English, French, Kinyarwanda, and Swahili. President David, I present Her Excellency, Ms. Yamina Karitanyi.
Thank you very much indeed, Vasi. Your Excellency, the platform is yours.
Thank you very much, President David Johnson, past President Dr. Vasi Daniel, past President Mr. Clive Amos, members of the Rotary Club of London, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
By thanking Dr. Daniel for inviting me to address the Rotary Club of London. I wish we could be meeting in person, and I hope this will be a possibility in not too distant of a future. It is a privilege to speak to members of an organization such as Rotary, where helping to spread goodwill and peace is at the core of your beliefs. The topic of my speech today is fighting genocide ideology. And I would like to begin by telling you a little about my country, Rwanda. Rwanda is located between East and Central Africa and is a member of both the East African Community as well as the Economic Community of Central African States. Rwanda is landlocked, or rather land-linked, as we like to call it. The size of our land is just over 26,000 square kilometers with a population of 12.6 million. Rwanda is by many measures considered a small country. But one of my favorite quotes reads, "A diamond is just a piece of charcoal that handles stress exceptionally well." In my view, this perfectly describes Rwanda. Our story of resilience and transformation over the past 2.5 decades is what makes Rwanda our diamond. Rwandans inherited a wounding history. After gaining independence in 1962 from Belgium, Rwanda was characterized by widespread discrimination and politics based on division and exclusion. Colonialism, for it to be effective, commanded that the colonizers divide communities so as to better rule over them. In essence, divide and rule was the strategy. What followed after independence allowed for the leadership of that time to focus on forging further division and hatred among its citizens. The results were catastrophic. Genocide does not start with the killings. There are many preceding stages that victims are forced to endure, which include classification, dehumanization, and polarization. Over 4 decades, generations of Rwandans were forced to live in exile due to the ruthless and divisive leadership which pushed Tutsis to flee persecution in Rwanda starting in 1959. Families were separated as individuals sought refuge using the nearest and safest border at the time of their escape. Many others who remained in Rwanda were persecuted against and eventually became the victims we remember each year since 1994. It is this history that led to the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, in which 1,074,017 women, men, and children were killed. From 7th April 1994, my country experienced a terrible series of the most tragic and inhumane acts. Over 100 of the darkest days in our history, a well-planned genocide unfolded in front of the entire world. At international forums, where one would have hoped and expected sounding alarms to be deafening, we heard sophisticated conversations about what amounts to genocide, its definition, and whether it could be applied to the Rwandan situation. every year on the 7th of April and for the 100 days thereafter, Rwandans around the world come together to commemorate, to honor those who we lost, and console survivors. In Kinyarwanda, my mother tongue, the annual commemoration is called Kwibuka, which means to remember. Speaking during this year's Kwibuka 26, which 26 for the years after 1994, Rwanda's President Paul Kagame said the following: "Today, we pause to reflect on the tragedy we experienced and what we lost, both individually and as a nation. We will continue to educate new generations of Rwandans about what happened to our country and what we learned from it. We are putting those lessons into practice for the benefit of those who come after us. The lessons of our history have united us. They teach us the value of good leadership that cares for the well-being of all citizens." The president touches on one of the most important methods to fight genocide ideology, which is education. Rwanda has incorporated peace education along with the history of our genocide into the national curriculum. We also strongly believe these efforts should be expanded globally, especially given the state of world affairs. I firmly believe that ignoring the threat of genocide or treating it in isolation versus dealing with it as a dangerous global threat, the same way we all understand the threat of terrorism, is short-sightedness. Evil spreads fast, and allowing destructive ideologies to settle constitutes a significant global threat. It is encouraging to see today schools from around the UK making steps towards educating students on genocide, ensuring that the word never again becomes a reality. The Ishami Foundation, a genocide survivor association based here in London, works in schools drawing on lessons from the past to nurture a more tolerant and compassionate future generation by sharing survivors' stories with pupils. To name but a few, Harrow School, Jack Hunt School, Hampton School, and Putney High School have all engaged with the High Commission to educate their pupils. Hampton School have set up an online resource for teachers and pupils focused on the genocide against the Tutsi. We also hosted our National Heroes Day event at Harrow School back in February this year, and a group of students from Harrow, alongside students from the University of Westminster, will be traveling to Rwanda next year. Dear friends, Rwanda can only win the fight against genocide ideology by having more partners willing to walk this journey with us. Education is also key to exposing the last but equally painful stage of genocide, which is denial. When left unchallenged, denial is a threat to humanity's collective conscience and serves as the ultimate offense to the memory of the victims. The government of Rwanda has made it clear we have to be forceful in our fight, as some of the denial contains political undertones, which genocide fugitives continue to promote, often supported by some in the mainstream media, as well as academia. This year, due to COVID-19, Rwandans and friends of Rwanda could not gather to observe Kwibuka. Each year, there are church services across the country, including the main services in St. Malibon's Parish Church. This year, we invited the community to light a candle of remembrance in their homes and release a series of video messages. I would like now to show you a compilation of these messages.
The genocide against the Tutsi was carefully planned and cruelly implemented.
More than 1 million Rwandans died in the 100 days of the genocide against the Tutsi.
We mourn the loss of those who were killed in the genocide and honor their memory.
Commemoration also means we have a duty to expose evils of the last stage of genocide, which is denial.
Genocide deniers continue to misinterpret our history.
Over the last decade or so, we have observed among media organizations around the world the emergence of denialism.
Denial ensures the crime of genocide never ends, and for this reason, it must be challenged wherever it occurs. Many fine words have been pronounced by all, and yet fugitives remain at large, and the génocidaires are granted early release.
In Britain too, we remember that we have issues to resolve in respect of the genocide by those alleged génocidaires who have now been wandering around Britain free, and 11 years of legal entanglement has not yet brought justice.
We will not stop campaigning for them to stand trial. We undertake on this 26th commemoration to continue to fight inaction, indifference and silence.
We draw encouragement from the fortitude and dignity with which Rwanda has come together as a nation in a spirit of reconciliation to rebuild.
Just as you would have wished for, we are all united as one, as Rwandese.
That's because we are only one family.
Let us work even harder to remain on the good side of history by doing our part, collectively and individually, to ensure perpetrators face persecution and remain haunted by the cruelty of heinous acts they committed. I wish you strength and peace. Murakoze. Thank you. So the importance of commemorations, am I being heard?
Yes, yes, you are indeed.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Thank you. The importance of commemorations goes beyond remembrance. As this video shows, our community and friends in the UK are connected and unified. Every year, we return with renewed vigor to ensure the evils of the past are never repeated and to ensure a glaring spotlight is pointed at the evils that continue to this day, such as denialism and fugitives evading justice. Each commemoration is an opportunity, therefore, to renew our pledge to expose the evils of genocide, denial, and revisionism. When we speak about the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994, we rightly focus on the million-plus lost lives, but the damage was much more pronounced. We had a stagnating economy that shrank by 50%, a 64% inflation rate, a 78% poverty rate, an overwhelming number of displaced persons, more than 140,000 genocide suspects in overcrowded prisons. The entire socio-economic fabric was destroyed and the infrastructure was dilapidated. A complete restart was required, but we also had huge capacity gaps and weak institutional frameworks. 96% of our civil servants had no higher education. That was the image in 1994 after the genocide. So the war was over, the genocide was over, but we needed a recipe for peace. How did we do it? To start, we looked inward and we got inspired by our culture in order to manage the aftermath of the genocide. One of these innovative homegrown solutions was gachacha, which is our traditional court system, that offers restorative justice to victims of the genocide while allowing for healing and reconciliation within the communities. Had it not been for Gacaca, it would have taken Rwanda 160 years to try perpetrators if we were to rely on the overstretched and inadequate legal system. Yet we needed to make strides which would allow for communities to start healing. Other homegrown solutions we rely on include Umuganda, which is community work where millions of Rwandans, including officials, come together once a month on a last Saturday of every month to clean up our communities. Kigali, Rwanda's capital, was voted as the cleanest city in Africa, and Rwanda was ranked 3rd greenest country in the world according to the World's Travel Guide. The community action has been backed up by forward-thinking policies. For instance, in 2007, Rwanda became the first country in the world to legislate an outright ban on polythene bags. And in June last year, a law was passed banning single-use plastics. Under an enlightened leadership led by His Excellency Paul Kagame, Rwanda has become a reference point for good governance in the region, political stability with well-functioning institutions, observance of the rule of law, and zero tolerance for corruption. The World Bank has praised Rwanda's remarkable development successes, which it says have helped reduce poverty and inequality. We've made great strides towards our ambitious goals, and the well-being of citizens has been put at the center of this development, so that all Rwandans can live with the dignity they deserve. Over the last 2 decades, Rwanda's GDP has tripled, and we've graduated from a 95% reliance on foreign aid to about 16.5% today. Rwanda is a staunch advocate of intra-Africa trade and looks forward to the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which would create the biggest market in the world, 1.2 billion, with a combined GDP of $3 trillion US. In 2018, the growth in Rwanda was 8.6%, and it rose to 10.8% in the first 3 quarters of 2019. Despite the negative impact of COVID-19, the International Credit Rating Agency, which has rated Rwanda's credit worthiness as B positive with a stable outlook, affirming the resilience of the economy to bounce back after the pandemic. But of course, we are very sober about the effects of this pandemic and expect to have acute downward adjustments on economic outlook. Rwanda is the 2nd easiest country to do business in Africa, according to the World Bank Doing Business report. To attract investment and growth, we have adopted a liberal trade regime with tax incentives for strategic sectors such as ICT, which is particularly important as Rwanda is quickly developing into a regional technology and innovation hub. You can also register a business in Rwanda in less than 6 hours. Another area that we as Rwandans are proud of is the advances we've made in the healthcare sector. Starting with Rwanda's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the government acted swiftly and effectively to protect the lives of Rwandan citizens. The borders were closed on the 21st of March, with exception for cargo and repatriation of returning citizens, and the airport only reopened for commercial flights on 1st August. On the 3rd of March, the government established a dedicated COVID-19 joint task force. Since then, we've established several labs that work around the clock to test and give COVID-19 results, a 24/7 call center, and we've also started using human-sized robots on COVID-19 clinics to take patients' temperatures and deliver supplies. The government has committed to testing and tracing as widely as possible. And on the 3rd of July, COVID-19 drive-through testing at sites across the capital city began. The testing sites will aim to test 5,000 people daily, while widespread testing and tracing continues with approximately 4,000 tests completed every day. Overall, Rwanda has 2,013 active cases of COVID-19, and I'm happy to report that 56% of patients, or 2,556 out of a total of 4,591 have fully recovered. We unfortunately have registered 22 deaths to date. These are the results as of yesterday. Outside of COVID-19, Rwanda is committed to offering universal access to healthcare and is internationally recognized for success in this field. Coverage stands at a little over 90%. Life expectancy has raised from 49 years in 2000 to 67 years today. Rwanda has also emerged as a leading proof of concept hub and is now the ideal base for creating, testing, and launching innovative technology-enabled solutions that can be scaled globally. To provide an example, Rwanda is home to the world's first drone delivery port, set up by Silicon Valley startup Zipline. The drones rapidly deliver medical supplies and blood to remote areas that would typically take several hours to reach. I like to say that our drones save lives. Investing in our people is crucial, and we are building a skilled and educated workforce. 97% of school-going aged children in Rwanda are enrolled in school, and literacy rates rose from 48% in 2000 to over 89% today. We're also producing 50,000 higher education graduates every year. Rwanda is also a net exporter of peace, being not only among the top 5 highest contributors of peacekeeping forces, but also the top contributor of female police officers serving in various United Nations and African Union peacekeeping missions. Amongst Rwanda's achievement in building a unified and inclusive society is the importance placed on women's empowerment. Rwanda has consistently had the highest female representation of parliamentarians in the world since 2003, currently standing at 61.5%, and gender equality is one of the fundamental principles guiding the Constitution, with a quota established stipulating that women must make up 30% of all decision-making organs. And today, Rwanda's cabinet is 50% female. Tourism is our top foreign exchange earner, contributing significantly to our GDP and economic growth. Rwanda is home to the magnificent mountain gorillas, and we continue to offer a safe environment for them to thrive with conservation efforts and the utmost provision of care by the rangers and veterinary staff that look after these unique creatures. During the pandemic, rangers in Volcanoes National Park isolated away from their families to keep gorillas protected. We have reintroduced lions and rhinos in one of our other national parks, Akagera, making the park home to the Big Five. Our tourism policy states that 10% sales revenue from all touristic sites of Rwanda has to be reinvested into the development of local communities living around these sites. These main populations living around the parks join in securing the parks, which significantly reduced poaching. communities now consider parks as a revenue source because of policies aligned with strict governance rules. A global leader in conservation and ecotourism, our unique partnership with Arsenal Football Club has showcased all the reasons to visit Rwanda. And through it, we are attracting an increasing number of people to visit and experience Rwanda and buy made in Rwanda products. I want to let you know that Rwanda is open to travel again, and every effort is made to ensure the experience is safe and seamless for all visitors. Finally, this year marks 11 years since Rwanda was admitted into the Commonwealth of Nations, having joined in 2009 as the only country, only the second country to join without having any colonial or constitutional links to Great Britain. We are proud to be hosting the next Commonwealth Heads of Governments meeting in Kigali next year, where leaders from all over the Commonwealth will gather in Rwanda to discuss issues affecting us all, including technologies as response to challenges in public health, climate change, trade, rule of law, and youth matters in order to benefit the citizens, the 2.4 billion citizens of the Commonwealth. To conclude, we as Rwandans have gained an ideological clarity, which we call Ubunyarwanda, the precious national unity and cohesion, which is driving us towards achieving the Rwanda we want. Our country is safe, secure, and is positively looking towards the future. But Rwanda's story is one that needs to be told and one that everyone can learn from, as we as well continue learning from others to ensure that never again really does become a reality. We remain focused on creating further linkages with the global village and would like to invite you to join us on our journey to healing, rebuilding, and developing our nation as we continue to educate citizens of the world and equip them to challenge the evils of genocide denial and to work towards a world free of division, prejudice, and hatred. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'm humbled by your presentation. You have taken us through what is no more than a generation, from despair to hope, and from inconceivable behavior to a full part of the community of nations. I don't want to interrupt the questions that will follow, I'm sure, from the members. I know that Clive has been receiving and he's probably reviewing questions now on the chat. But I just wanted to thank you so much for your presentation, which has certainly opened my eyes, and I'm sure a lot of the other members of the club. Clive, would you kindly look after the questions, please?
Can I say to you, please, that if you wish to ask a question, can you unmute yourself? Just unmute yourself, and it will appear on my screen at the right-hand side if you want to ask questions. Just waving at me as I go through across the gallery doesn't work because the gallery is not consistent. Now, I know the first question is coming from Mo Ayaz. So, Mo, would you like to address your question, please, to Her Excellency?
Yes, thank you very much, Clive. What I'd like to do is firstly thank the Excellency High Commissioner YAMINA for such a wonderful presentation, and for our colleagues to facilitate you coming to the club. I with past District Governor Tony Sharma, have been working on a project to create a peace park between India and Pakistan. And lessons have still not been learned so many years after such disasters, where you get genocide happening, and you get people who peddle seeds of hate through discrimination, be it the Jewish community, be it in the partition. All around the world, you get people who are extreme in their views, who are trying to get people to hate other people. I think it'd be lovely for the more education we get to try and stop this brainwashing, the better. You have a Commonwealth summit, I think next year you were talking about. Is it possible that Rotary could be involved in some capacity? Because Rotarians, one of our core aims has always been peace and to help bring nations and peoples together.
Sure. Thank you very much. I think there is definitely an opportunity for the, obviously the Commonwealth Heads of Government Summit has its own component, which deals with the focus that I briefly spoke about. But there's equally side meetings that are feeding into the Heads of Government Summit. And the one that I'm thinking of particularly on the peace side, actually two of them. One is the foundation, the Commonwealth Foundation Summit. So they have on the sideline of the government summit, a summit to discuss things involving civil societies. And I think that would be a perfect one to have a peace component. And I know that in the discussions, the preparations, peace is very much part of it. The second summit that I think would be important to look at some collaboration with Rotary would be the Youth Summit. Obviously, 60% of the population within the Commonwealth is under the age of 35, I think. So that is where the focus very much has to be in terms of shaping the conversation moving forward, particularly in the area of social media and the spread of hate and fake news and whatnot. I think those are the two summits that I think would be good for Rotary Club to consider discussions with. I think in the past, we've already had some links between Rotary and the foundation, and I think it would be good to look at expanding those conversations with the Youth Summit as well. But I have to agree with you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for an outstanding address. It occurred to me as you were speaking that the history of a lot of countries, particularly in Western Europe and other parts of the world, which have had educated people, educated communities, has been full of racism, not to say genocide. And of course, Hannah Arendt, the famous philosopher, talked about the banality of evil. The fact that evil can strike in ordinary people, irrespective of their education, irrespective of norms of behavior, etc., etc. So I'm wondering if you're pretty optimistic, or whether you still have any worries or concerns within Rwanda itself about ordinary people. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I was talking about in Western European countries, you've had very educated people, educated communities, but that hasn't stopped any form of racism. You've got up-to-date laws trying to deal with situations, but you still have outbursts of racism, etc. So I'm wondering what, applying it to Rwanda now, and particularly because racism and genocide seems to erupt as banality of evil in the breasts of individual people as opposed to governments sometimes, whether you can be optimistic that the situation in Rwanda is such that perhaps outbreaks of the sort we have seen will not break out again. You see what I mean?
You know, I often ask myself if without government involvement, a country can actually reach genocidal levels. I mean, when we talk about genocide, we're not talking about crimes here and there. It's an organized crime. And to have an organized crime, you must have legitimacy by government. I think that's the danger. If you're not careful, if government is not careful, or if government is not reading the signs right, then yes, one can say it can be a recurring event. In the case of Rwanda, I think the reason why I can speak in front of you today is because we learned, and we literally created garde-fous that guide us to today. We have laws in place. Our genocide law has been amended, I think 4 or 5 times since the genocide in Rwanda. But I also have to say, I think part of the challenge is you have most of the time you have a government that works with a segment of the population to commit genocide. Mm-hmm. And the challenge is what comes after that genocide. Which government do you have in place? Do you have anarchy? Because if you have anarchy, it then creates that cycle where within another decade, you probably will end up with another genocide. If you end up with a government that is serious about correcting the ills of the past and moving towards a better future for the citizens, then you're on a good, on a better path, which is what we're celebrating in Rwanda today. Mm. But I must say, it takes a courageous leadership.
Absolutely great.
And you know, I remember maybe 20 years ago, or 22 years ago, maybe 2-3 years after the genocide, the decision was made by government to ban the death penalty. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, you inherit a genocide, you've lost 1 million of your population, and by 26 years ago, our population was about 7 million. So you can imagine losing 1/7 of your population. The question then is, what do you do after that? Because you have probably another 1 million that is part of the perpetrators. You can't put all of them to death, because then you create that cycle.
Sure.
So the courage and the foresight to be able to say, let's make things right and find a way to cohabit as we rebuild this nation and make it whole again. So it takes a lot of courage, a lot of pushback from the international community. I remember when we introduced the traditional court system, we were told by the donor community, we don't like it. We said, so what do you offer? Well, we don't have any other solution, what you have. But it needed the foresight of the government at that time and said, if you don't like it and you don't have an alternative, tough luck, we have to move forward. Because at the end of the day, all of these Rwandans will have to live together. So it's really the challenge is what comes right after the genocide? Which kind of government ends up taking over? And that's where the international community comes in, because oftentimes, you know, I mentioned how we basically were abandoned in '94. The international community was too scared to call it a genocide, because if you call it a genocide, you need to intervene. And, you know, the US soldiers had just been massacred in Somalia a few years back. So it was not the time to be thinking of intervention. But equally important is once the genocide is stopped by other means, the international community has the duty to ensure that the transition that comes after is one that will take that country to a better, on a better path.
My point was just that governments come and governments go and things change, you know?
Exactly. Exactly.
Thank you.
Come and they go, but that's why we need the institutions in place to ensure that, you know, once this government is gone, there are institutions that will protect the population.
Thank you.
Clive from the Rotary Club of Elstree and Boreham Wood, would you like to address your question, please?
Thank you very much, Clive. It's not really so much a question, but just to explain our connection to Rwanda. Your Excellency, thank you very much for your presentation. About 18 months ago, our son, who was working in the UAE, decided he was going to get married to a young lady from Rwanda. And we, last summer, were honoured to be able to visit Rwanda using Rwandair to attend the traditional Rwandan wedding celebration. But we also had the opportunity to visit the Genocide Memorial Museum, which is most moving, and highly commended if anyone does manage to get out there. We attended the Rotary Club of Kigali, Viranga, and we stayed in touch with past president there. We visited the Akagera Safari Park and Mzanzi. We went to the village up there. We didn't get to see the gorillas, unfortunately. But I can certainly commend it as a very friendly destination. And once the COVID emergency is over, of course, I'm sure it'll get a lot more visitors and it'll be a really good place to visit. They have done a wonderful job in addressing the past in the way they have. And we were just sort of blown away by it. It's a lovely country. The only complaint I have is there are a lot of hills. It's the land of 1,000 hills, and we find it hard work walking up them. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your very kind comments. We love those hills.
Can we now move on? Caroline Muir, would you like to address your question, please?
Thank you. Your Excellency, thank you very much for a really splendid presentation. And I can only commend the generosity of spirit that has allowed the healing to take place. Can I ask you, you have the Hutu and the Tutsi. I gather there's about, what, 85% Hutu and about, I think, 15% Tutsi. Is there intermarriage between the two tribes?
Well, this is a very good question, and I'll surprise you by telling you that those are not, in actual fact, real tribes. And I think that's why we could quickly move to reconciling. So the story with Tutsis and Hutus, during the colonial times, you of course, historically, you have Tutsis who were traditional cattle owners, and then the Hutus worked the land. That was the general understanding. But then you could graduate to become a Tutsi if you owned enough cows, right? So this is how absurd it gets, where you can actually, move up a tribe. So all of these are actually not real tribes. We speak, and what is a tribe? A tribe is you have a culture, you have a language. We only have one culture, we have one language. You're not gonna, our language is Kinyarwanda. We all speak Kinyarwanda. Now, I mentioned the colonial times and the divide and rule that had to take place to ensure that colonialism is successful. So the Tutsis were part of, we had a monarchy, right? And the kings were Tutsis, but the Hutus worked the lands, and everybody worked in harmony. We have many books that talk about it, because even I was confused. I said, so who is Hutu? Who, depending on who decide, how tall you are, how short you are, but you would have, and we have cases, you have very sad cases during the genocide, where the tall brother was killed and the short brother survived, because one looked Tutsi and the other one didn't look Tutsi. That's strange. And I think that's why it makes it easier for us to, with clarity of the mind, to move together towards a unified country. But division doesn't take much, Even in a family, you can just create division, and you have, within one generation, two set of brothers and their own families that hate each other. So it's all very blurred. It's what you decide to do. Which kind of vision you have for that nation. Just like there are countries that have 100 tribes and live in harmony. So the question is never, if indeed we had those tribes, Hutu and Tutsi and Twa, then even then, it doesn't mean that to cohabit, we need to kill each other. You see, but our particular case is even more absurd because it's very strange today to determine which ones are real Tutsis and which ones are half Tutsis and which ones are half Hutus. But to answer your question, intermarriage has always been there. And again, because it's so much in there, we all have a bit of, each. And it's difficult to then say, we know that these ones are proper Tutsis or proper Hutus. Intermarriages were there before colonialism. And again, I did say that you could graduate to become a Tutsi. So that tells you, that gives you the answer.
That is absolutely fascinating. May I also add that the Rwandan Sisterhood is doing a wonderful job, because I'm part of something called FIWAL, the Federation of International Women's Associations in London, and they have joined us. And the work they are doing in Rwanda to help, maternity homes and to help women having children, I think is brilliant. So I hope we can do something in Rotary to help that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Abayomi, would you like to address your question, please?
Yeah, hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine, Abayomi.
All right. I kind of like wrote my questions down to make it quite easy for me. I'm particularly fascinated by all the story behind the how Rwanda's kind of like evolved over time, and how they constantly, obviously, try to develop the country. I'm originally Nigerian, and we've had issues, kind of like close to all these kind of things in the past, the civil war in Nigeria and all of that. But my question basically is, as a beauty therapist and a beauty tutor, because I'm a beauty therapist and I run a small beauty college here in London, I'm kind of like interested in seeing how I can particularly support in any way, establishing or supporting in any shape or form in terms of anything that has to do with supporting in terms of beauty training, offering beauty courses to your youths there, and I'll really be delighted if you can basically look into this. So it's something I just want to do because it's obviously part of what Rotary stands for as well, and giving back and supporting people and all of that. So basically, if it's something that can be considered by a government, I wouldn't mind to be a part of it. I've been a beauty therapist for about 8 years. And like I said, I've been able to, God willing, establish my college here, and it's doing extremely well. So it would be a very wonderful opportunity for me to support your government in this kind of situation. So that's basically my question.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment and offer. What we will do is my office will put you in touch with the department that handles those kind of queries, and then you can decide how you want to approach it. We also have technical schools, and maybe that could be the avenue to pursue through our workforce development authority. We have technical schools that are engaged in beauty and other fields. So we'll be able to link you with the right contacts, and then we'll look forward to that development. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Immediate past District Governor Tony Sharma. I believe, Tony, you have a question that you would like to address.
Thank you, Clive. Your Excellency, thank you so much for the information. It's something I think we mostly knew but failed to recognise. So I'd like to congratulate you and your government for actually bringing it back to the forefront. Now, I've been involved with the Commonwealth House of Government for several years now, and we were due to be in Rwanda this time round, but due to COVID, it's now going to be next year. And we look to engage with the youth, especially in the music sector, to bring them together under the roof of music. Of course, I am well aware of the sport and the football, and with that and with the music interaction, I'm sure we can bring the two countries closer together on that stage. How do you see the cooperation of the international community, knowing that in the past they have actually failed your country?
Thank you, Tony. On that question, we've again taking us back to 1994. We were angry. We were angry. We felt abandoned. We were lost. But then again, back to my initial point of what happens right after the genocide is key. So we quickly needed to gain sobriety back and realize that at the end of the day, whether the colonial times pushed us to the point of where we could kill our brothers and sisters, whether we could point a finger at some foreign actors that were acting in cohort with the government, the then government, the genocidaire government, that was not going to take us any step forward to where we needed to be. So I think that mentality of putting the blame elsewhere and instead of focusing inward can be very dangerous. Because at the end of the day, bluntly speaking, the world can only care if you care about yourself. I mean, I speak as we today, we still have genocidaires that are roaming free in the world. But we can't just sit and be mad at the world. We have to do our part. So what we did, we said, we will own this. First thing is ownership. We had to own the problem. We had to own the state of affairs in our country for us to be able to move towards a future that will then push that international community to join us. But you can only achieve so much by finger pointing, and the world is so busy in a way. I mean, people can only help you if you say, here are the list of genocidaires that we have. Now that you failed us, we agree, we understand, but we've strengthened our judicial system. Here is where we are, and this is now a clear request we're putting to you as a nation that could help us. But guilt, guilt is even very subjective, is it not? It's very difficult to force a country to even recognize their own involvement. Plus, bluntly speaking, Rwanda is a small nation. We're not sitting on massive lithium, though we've now discovered it. We're not, it's 12 million of our population now, 26,000 square kilometers. So we understood that for us to even become relevant in this very complex world order, we needed to do our homework and then invite the world to join us in our quest. And that's the journey that we are on. And the point is to stay focused on that journey so that you can start contributing to the global affairs. I mentioned the fact that we now are engaged in peacekeeping missions. But when we decided to do that, we say, let's train our peacekeepers to be the best so that next time there is need for peacekeeping missions, the UN has Rwanda on dial. But we needed to train them. We needed to tell them that they have to go and perform as their own ambassadors to their country. And that has become an additional contribution that Rwanda is making to the world that actually makes sense. So in a nutshell, I think the lesson we learn is fix your own mess, then you can sit at the table and invite others to join you in your quest to development.
Thank you very much for that. May I, the damage that has been done and the hurt that has been caused will take some time to heal. But we are where we're at. And as you quite rightly say, we have to look forward. And I feel that Rotary can form a very significant part with the partnerships that we intend to have. So I'm looking forward to going to Rwanda next year. And we're learning already from my colleague Clive that we have connections there. We want to build on these connections. And for this, I would seek your assistance to help build a partnership quicker rather than later.
We will do our best, and we'll make all needed introductions because we all want to see this partnership hold and succeed, because it benefits everybody, doesn't it? But thank you
very much. Thank you.
And the final question, Vasi, your hand is raised. Is it for a question? If so, can we make it just one quick question, because we're just about to run out of time. Thank you, Vasi.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It was the most inspiring and interesting talk. Thank you. My question is, Rwanda is a #1 country for women in politics. For example, how is it like in daily life, for example, in schools? Thank you.
Very good point. We started with the government, again, back to the times of the genocide. You know, the president said it's nonsensical to ignore 52% of our population. And plus, we had lost a lot of men also during the genocide. But it then took time to change the mindset and the narrative around girls' education. And even when they were in school, you know, which fields are they being promoted to take? Today in Rwanda, we now have equal numbers of girls in all fields. So ICT, medicine, computer science, basically at a very young age, encouraging young daughters to go for what they wish for. That took another generation, I have to say, because the mothers were busy rebuilding the country, but we didn't realize at that time that we needed to now educate those girls who could then take over. But that's now happening. We have real cadres at all levels of government, private sector, all sectors really. But most importantly, now we're focusing on the schools to make sure that we have high graduation rates for both girls and boys, of course. But it is happening and it's encouraging. We lost time, of course, but it is now happening. Issues such as gender-based violence are being really dealt with, fought by all sectors in government and in the civil society. So we're in a good place. We're in a good place where young girls understand that they have equal opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. President David, we have run out of time, unfortunately. Can I invite you to take charge of the meeting again and to invite the Tim to propose the vote of thanks?
Thank you very much, Clive. And certainly we could go on much longer, but a thought-provoking speech is what we offered, and a thought-provoking speech is what we've had. I'll now call upon immediate past President Tim McAndrews to give our vote of thanks. Tim.
Your Excellency Karitanyi, it gives me enormous pleasure to be asked to give the vote of thanks to you today. As you said at the beginning of your talk, a Zoom meeting is not necessarily the best way to have to present yourselves to a group of people, but my goodness, you've had us absolutely captivated and engaged for the last hour, and I congratulate you on doing that. I very much hope that past President Vasi will invite you along to the Chesterfield whenever we get back to our normal meetings so that we can see and meet you in the flesh, and you can do likewise. The talk you gave was fascinating, it was educational, and inspirational in the way that your country has recovered from what happened in 1994. I myself am aware of genocides that have happened in other countries, in Cambodia, for example, in the 1970s. I've been there, I've walked in the killing fields, I've seen the human remains, and I find it extraordinary that there you are 20 years later, things like this happened in Rwanda. Absolutely terrible. Your analysis of the stages of genocide and how it evolves, your ways as a country of remembering it, and to hear about the tremendous success that your country has had in rebuilding itself, were all absolutely enthralling to hear from you. It is just awful to think that a number of the chief perpetrators are still at large. And I fear that's something that will probably continue for many years. Nazi hunters were looking for Nazis for 50, 60 years after the Second World War, and I think still are, but of course most of them by now have deceased. So Your Excellency, thank you very much indeed for giving us that talk. Clive, could you just unmute everybody so that we can show our appreciation?
Unfortunately, I can't, Tim. Zoom stopped.
You can't anymore.
But individuals can unmute themselves.
If you could all unmute yourself, and what I would like you to do is to clap in the normal traditional way that we show appreciation for our excellent speaker. All right, I'll now hand you back to our President David, who will also show you, but can't hand you, the speaker certificate, which we give to all our speakers. Thank you very much indeed, once more. David.
President David.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Tim. Can you hear me, Clive?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you, Tim. I'm very pleased to present you, Your Excellency, with the speaker certificate from the Rotary Club of London, which I will send to you digitally tomorrow. And I'd like to reinforce Tim's wish that we see you at Chesterfield when we're able to meet back there. I'd now like to move on to towards the close of the meeting. Firstly, I'd like to ask all members to remember our charitable purpose and to encourage you to send money to Hugh for charitable application, where we have several charities we're supporting at the moment, and please keep making your donations. I'd like now to move on to announce the next meeting in which past President Varsi is also very much involved, which is our International Peace Day. And we have Her Excellency Karen Hill, the High Commissioner of Antigua and Barbados, Emeritus Professor Kevin Clements, the Director of the National Centre of Peace. We have Jonathan Fryer, a freelance writer who had hoped to join us today, but has had to go and do an interview in Westminster for some peculiar reason, Brexit, I think. And Sean Cleary, who is the Sustainability Professional and Non-Executive Director of the, I'm sorry, I haven't got the organisation in front of me, I'm sorry about that. Those are our speakers. Please join us again next week for another excellent programme. And that only leaves me to offer the last toast of the day, which is to Rotary and peace the world over. Please pick up your glasses and toast on your open mics. Rotary and peace the world over.
Rotary and peace the world over.
Peace the world over.
Thank you.
Peace the world over.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity, President, and all the very best to this wonderful organization.